Unlike the NFL, fantasy football isn't solely dependent on quarterback, but it's still an important position, even though it's super deep. Let's talk about the top 12 quarterbacks. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Welcome back. Today we're talking about quarterbacks. Unlike the actual NFL game, where quarterbacks are detrimental to your team's success, it's a little bit different here in fantasy sports. Yes, quarterbacks are important. You got to have one. But there's just so many of them and so many quality quarterbacks that you don't have to waste an early round pick on getting one of them. It's a hugely deep position. We're rolling with it. It is. There's tons of quarterbacks that you can wait and get way late. I typically don't draft a quarterback any earlier than round 7, and that's even a little early at times. I want to make sure I'm all stacked up on my running backs and wide receivers before I go out there and reach at a quarterback. Just makes more sense. But we're going to get right into this list, and I'm going to tell you guys who I have ranked as my top 12 quarterbacks. All right, let's start at the bottom. Let's start at number 12, and let's talk about Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is severely underrated, in my opinion, this year, and a lot of people are hating on him because he doesn't have a stud wide receiver anymore. Well, was Dez really a stud to begin with? I kind of like now that Dez is no longer in town. They still have a solid offensive line and a solid run game to keep the defense honest. They brought in Hurns. Hurns has produced in the NFL before. I don't know what all the hate is about Hurns. Is he a top 10 wide receiver? No, he's not. But is he a consistently solid wide receiver? Yes, he is. He's had injury concerns in the past, but he's healthy now, and you have to give the kid an opportunity. They went out and drafted Michael Gallup. If you don't know who Michael Gallup is, you need to go Google it. It's worth a Google, because this kid is one of the best receivers in college football, and he's NFL ready. He's going to get an immediate target share because Terrence Williams has his off-the-field issues, and he's going to be able to produce. They still have Cole Beasley in the slot, and Dak Prescott can just play freely. He doesn't have to force the ball anywhere. There's no divas in that wide receiver group. He's going to be able to hit the open guy, play without thinking about it, and I think us fantasy owners are going to benefit from it. Not to mention he has that scrambling ability. Well, he has about a 6-touchdown rushing upside from year to year, which is a plus. I mean, he has a tendency to sneak it in himself there from about the 5-yard in. I know it pisses off all the Ezekiel Elliott owners, but he's got that ability. And just the chance of the rushing touchdown here or there, it's just an added bonus. Dak Prescott is somebody who's being severely slept on, but I have him ranked as number 12 overall. Let's talk about one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the history of fantasy football. This guy who I have at number 11, and that's Phillip Rivers. Why does everybody not like Phillip Rivers? I don't get it. Why is he so ignored? What did he do to everybody out there to just be overlooked year after year after year? He's thrown for 4,000 yards 9 out of the last 10 years. He hasn't thrown for less than 26 touchdowns since 2007. They improved their offensive line with the center Mike Pouncey. They get Forrest Lamp back. The loss of Hunter Henry hurts a little bit. It does. But could they bring back Antonio Gates or somebody like that? Absolutely. I don't know if that's a big factor, but they still have Keenan Allen, Tyrell Williams. Mike Williams comes back hopefully healthy this year. He's got plenty of opportunity. They have a run game, solid offensive line. Listen, it's Phillip Rivers. I mean, I don't need to sit here and tell you all of his stats. He's consistent. And he's somebody that you can get in one of the last rounds of your draft. And I don't understand why. Phillip Rivers is a solid quarterback one with huge value because you get him so late. And he will definitely be somebody that I'm targeting in the majority of my leagues this year. Cracking the top 10, going number 10, it's going to be Matthew Stafford in Detroit. And it's another one of those guys. He just kind of gets overlooked from time to time. And he's another guy that's getting drafted a little bit too late. But he's never thrown for less than 4,000 yards in a season. Now, I understand that there's a new coaching staff in Detroit. They've spent a draft pick on Kerryon Johnson, who's a solid running back. They have, LeGarrette Blount now. They have Amir Abdullah, Theo Riddick. I get it. They're going to try to run the ball, which is fine. Because even if they do run the ball a little bit more than they have, they're still a throwing offense. Matthew Stafford is not the type of quarterback who's just going to hand the ball off and not throw the ball ever. They have him there to throw the ball. And they still have Marvin Jones. They have Kenny Golladay, who I expect to take a step forward, and Golden Tate, somebody who's got that 100-catch potential every single year. They have plenty of opportunities, Plus, they no longer have Eric Ebron. And my thing is, if you don't have Eric Ebron, you're a better offense than if you do have Eric Ebron. So that's a plus also. Gotta love that. Eric Ebron is like fantasy nightmare. Okay, yeah, not going to happen. But Matthew Stafford, like I said, somebody who gets overlooked all the time, but he's a safe option. Is he going to go out there and consistently throw you 40 touchdowns like some of these top names? Probably not. He's going to have some interceptions here or there. But for where you can get him at, for 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, it's a great value. I got Matthew Stafford at number 10. Number 9 is going to be Jimmy Garoppolo. And I love Jimmy G. I've been talking about Jimmy G since he started the last 5 games of last year. It's huge. And I know we have a small sample size. He doesn't, have a whole lot of NFL starting experience, but he didn't last year either, and he was able to produce just fine. If you were to take that small sample size that we got for him last year, he would have thrown for right around 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns. That's top 10 talent from the quarterback position, and now he gets back Pierre Garcon, who he didn't have last year, who's a solid possession receiver, and they drafted Donte Pettis. If you don't know who Donte Pettis is, just like I told you with Michael Gallup, go Google him. The dude is good. It has improved that offense. They still have Marquise Goodwin. They've added Jerick McKinnon in the backfield. What does Jerick McKinnon do? Catch passes? You never know. This could turn into one of the most slept-on, underrated offenses in all of football, just because they don't have the big names. But I trust Kyle Shanahan. I trust that offense. And that defense in San Francisco isn't elite. Therefore, they're going to be throwing all 4 quarters. Jimmy G has the potential to easily be a top 10 quarterback. Another guy you can get late in drafts. I got him at number 9. Number 8, it's going to be Drew Brees. And I'm going to be honest, I hate having Drew Brees this low. And as we get closer to the season, I actually may move him up a little bit. I know last year it wasn't a bad year by any means. It wasn't a Drew Brees type year because they relied so heavily on the run. And I get that. But Drew Brees isn't taking a step back. He hasn't lost anything. It's just the way the offense is going. And now then Mark Ingram is suspended, I kind of can see New Orleans throwing the ball a lot more. Now, I know he's only gone for the first 4 games of the year, but for those first 4 games, could we have old Brees come back? Possible. And he's another guy who's fallen a little bit down some people's rankings, but I think the closer we get, I think I'm going to have to start thinking about moving him up in the rankings at least a spot or 2. They did add Ben Watson and Cameron Meredith in the offseason. And if you don't care about that, you probably should. Ben Watson was there a few years ago, had great chemistry with Drew Brees. Cameron Meredith was coming into the last season as the Bears' number 1 wide receiver. Huge upside, ended up getting hurt, shipped to New Orleans. And now all of a sudden they have Cameron Meredith, Michael Thomas, and Alvin Kamara, and Ben Watson. I mean, they have an offense in New Orleans, and Sean Payton knows how to use it. It's going to be fun again in New Orleans this year. They're going to win a bunch of games. Their defense is solid, and I think the opposing defenses are going to kind of look to limit the run a little bit. They got torched last year on the ground, and if defenses start focusing on the run game, old Drew Brees comes back. I like Drew Brees a lot. And I'm liking him more and more as we get closer to the season. But for right now, safely, got him at number 8. Number 7 on my list is going to be Carson Wentz. And it's hard to put him here. But the reason I put him here is just because I don't want people to forget about him and what he did at the beginning of last season. Yes, he got hurt. Yes, Nick Foles came in and led them to the Super Bowl victory. But Carson Wentz was almost running away with the MVP trophy last year before he got hurt. And you can't just discount that. Right? There's videos of him coming out in OTAs. He's moving. Is he 100% yet? No, he's not. So may he slide down this list come preseason time? He may. But for right now, don't forget about Carson Wentz. Don't sleep on him. He was on pace last year, had he played the whole season, for 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. That's easily top 5 quarterback range, and he could do it again this year. The offense hasn't changed much. He could produce the same numbers. Just don't forget about Carson Wentz on draft day, and make sure you're watching his preseason to see how his healthy recovery is coming. Number 6 on my list is going to be my hometown quarterback here, and that's Cam Newton of the Carolina Panthers. And Cam's kind of somebody that's hard to figure out, right? He's either the MVP or like the not MVP, right? It's one or the other. He's not very consistent, but this year I believe he has an opportunity to kind of take a step forward compared to last year. We need to keep Cam Newton healthy here. So what did they do? They went out and signed C.J. Anderson. C.J. Anderson was the number 1 rated pass blocker for all running backs last year in 2017. That should help out on first and second down. And then they went out and added DJ Moore. Am I a huge fan of DJ Moore? Yes. Am I a huge fan of DJ Moore in this offense? From a fantasy perspective, not so much. DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey, they still have Curtis Samuel. They're all kind of a similar type of player. So as far as fantasy value goes, it's going to be hit and miss. You're not going to know which one which week. But what that does for Cam is it gives him less time in the pocket. He's got a lot of quick receivers. They're going to live off the quick screens. They're going to live off the quick slants, everything here in Carolina this year. And they're going to get these guys, these ball carriers, room and space. They want to give them the opportunity to bust a big one. Cam's not going to be reliant on his arm throwing it 30, 40 yards downfield with these guys. He's going to have to throw it 5 to 8 yards and then watch him run. All that's going to do for Cam Newton is boost up his stats, giving you more fantasy points. Plus, he always has that rushing ability, right? 600 yards a year rushing, a lot of goal line touchdowns. Doesn't have a whole lot of big targets outside of Greg Olsen and Devin Funchess, Honey Funchess of Oats, making his 2018 appearance. And you know what? They're going to get theirs. He's going to take shots down the field, and he's going to turn the ball over at times. But it's kind of set up to help Cam, to take a little bit of pressure off of Cam with the wide receivers they have. And I'm looking for Cam to take another step forward. Their defenses had the tendency to take the second half off of games and let teams back in, which technically gives Cam Newton the opportunity to throw more in the second half, and that's just boosting your fantasy value. He's got a huge ceiling, and he's also got a pretty safe floor. I'm not entirely on the Cam Newton bandwagon, but I got one foot on it, and that's a step in the right direction. I got Cam Newton at number 6. All right, top 5 territory. Number 5 is going to Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, and I have him a little higher than a lot of people do, but I'll tell you why like usual. They got Stephon Diggs. They got Adam Thielen. They got Kyle Rudolph. They have Dalvin Cook. Latavius Murray's still the backup running back. I mean, he's got options all over the place, right? I mean, he has Laquan Treadwell. I mean, he's just got, options galore, which is something he's not used to. He's got a way better offensive line here in Minnesota than he did in Washington. He's going to have time to throw the ball. He'll be playing indoors for half of his games, which is something he wasn't used to in Washington. Doesn't have to worry about the weather indoors come those winter months. And Case Keenum, don't forget about Case Keenum. Look what he did in this offense last year. And now you insert Kirk Cousins. Is he going to be somebody who racks up 5,000 passing yards and 40 touchdowns? Probably not. But he's going to have the highest floor, I would bet, of almost all of these not wide receivers, out of all of these quarterbacks. And it's going to be one of those safe plays every week that you can plug in and not have to worry about matchups or anything else. He's going to be consistent. He's going to have you right around that 4,000-yard mark, high 20s to low 30s in touchdowns, and he's not going to have a lot of turnovers. Very accurate passer, very safe play, somebody I'll be targeting a lot in my fantasy drafts this year. Number 5 is going to be Kirk Cousins. Number 4 is going to be Russell Wilson, and I recently just moved him down a spot with the addition of Brandon Marshall. And that may not make sense to you, but before Brandon Marshall, they didn't really have anything besides Doug Baldwin. I know they drafted Rashad Penny, and I like Rashad Penny. And a lot of people are telling me how the offensive line has improved, and I get it. They have a few pieces back. Dwayne Brown's still there. They have a decent offensive line, but they haven't produced anything yet, right? Russell Wilson is forced to take the game over himself a lot, and that defense, I don't care if they have Earl Thomas there still or Bobby Wagner. They had him last year, right? And they were still getting up a lot of points, and Russell Wilson's still being forced to throw all 4 quarters, make plays happen with his feet. Russell Wilson is the number 1 option for the Seattle Seahawks, and he will be again this year. I think Doug Baldwin's being slept on a little bit. I think the addition of Brandon Marshall actually helps Doug Baldwin a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. Brandon Marshall is a great name, but hasn't been able to stay healthy for a while and really produce. But he has that upside and that potential. He's got that 600-yard rushing yards a year potential, which is a huge plus come fantasy time. And I'm kind of looking for similar production to what he had last year. If Seattle wants to be somewhat competitive in that division, he's going to have repeat numbers. And last year he was quarterback 1. He's got the ability to kind of move up this list a little bit, possibly into those top 2 spots. But for right now, with the way things stand here in the preseason, I got Russell Wilson as number 4. Top 3. Here we go, top 3. My third overall is going to be Deshaun Watson. And I wanted to put him higher, but he hasn't earned it yet. But he's close. I'm sticking with him at number 3 right now. Last year, he averaged just under 300 yards a game in his 5 starts. He's coming into this year with the 3rd easiest strength of schedule for the preseason. And Will Fuller is healthy again. Don't sleep on Will Fuller. Do I expect him to have the same production as he had last year? No, probably not. Dude had like 7 or 8 touchdowns in 5 games with Deshaun Watson. But he's back. He's healthy. It gives Watson another option outside of DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, listen, DeAndre Hopkins is arguably the best wide receiver in football. And now Will Fuller's opposite of him. And he's going to be seeing the single coverage because the defense has to focus on DeAndre Hopkins. They can't just put him on one-on-one coverage and expect him not to get destroyed. So, Deshaun Watson has the perfect ability, kind of has the rushing upside, not quite the likes of Russell Wilson or anything, but his feet have a tendency to extend plays, kind of like an Aaron Rodgers-esque ability, right? He can scramble out of certain situations, find the open receiver, and he's exciting to watch. He's exciting to cheer for. He's got huge upside. I mean, the ceiling for Deshaun Watson is up there with the ceiling of an Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. If you were to tell me that you drafted Deshaun Watson over Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, I wouldn't even think you were crazy. Do I think it's the smartest play? Not yet, but it's not crazy, right? Deshaun Watson, huge upside. Love his situation here in Houston this year. And if Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins can stay healthy, look out for Deshaun Watson. I got him at number 3. Number 2 on my list is going to be Tom Brady. The guy just never seems to get older. He's just like, is he ever going to go away? We may be talking about Tom Brady in like 10 years still. I mean, the guy is just like Benjamin Button. He just doesn't get old. And I'm not going to sit here and try to sell you on Tom Brady. If you don't know who Tom Brady is by now, I'm not going to sell you on him, right? It's Tom Brady. I mean, that's enough. He gets Julian Edelman back this year and a healthy Rob Gronkowski. It's Tom Brady. I mean, that's enough said. I don't need to sell you anymore on Tom Brady. He's number 2. Well, by process of elimination, I guess that means my number 1 quarterback going in here preseason is going to be Aaron Rodgers. And, I mean, is there anybody else deserving of this number 1 spot outside of him? I mean, not really. I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers. He's always produced. I don't care what year it is. He just needs to stay healthy. I don't need to sell you on his abilities either. I mean, you probably know who Aaron Rodgers is by now. And I know some of you guys are like, yeah, well, he doesn't have another receiver. He lost Jordy Nelson. I get it. Look for Randall Cobb to have a better year. And the addition of Jimmy Graham in the red zone is going to be huge. If Equanimeous St. Brown, making his 2nd appearance of the year here on the show, can step up in the preseason, earn that number 2 spot, he's a solid option for Rodgers as well. He's got that 250 to 300 yards rushing that he gets from year to year. And his defense is not the greatest. They did improve the secondary in the draft, but overall the defense is not that great. And they're going to be throwing all 4 quarters again to win ball games. And if Aaron Rodgers is throwing all 4 quarters, you're looking at about 300 yards a game with that 40 touchdown upside. It's Aaron Rodgers. I got him ranked as number 1 here in the preseason. All right, that's it for my preseason quarterback rankings. Those are my top 12. If I didn't talk about somebody that you figured may be in these rankings or you think I have somebody in the wrong position, share your opinion. I love to hear it. I look forward to talking to you guys. Make sure you guys are liking, commenting, subscribing. Really appreciate the support. Looking forward to hearing from you. We'll talk to you later. Thanks.